October 10th, 2007 is a date seared into my mind. It was a day of pure excitement and new experiences. A day I thought anything was possible. But, most importantly, that day a promise was made. I'm talking, of course, about the day Half-Life 2 Episode 2 released. Overstating how insane the Half-Life series was is impossible. The story, the gameplay, all just top tier. My favorite thing about Half-Life games is just how much variation there is within the game. In Half-Life 2 alone, you start as a man on the run, then you get this boat chase, only for it to turn into Resident Evil. But what makes Half-Life the most intriguing is the mystery. Half-Life rarely flat out tells you what happened. Gamers piece together what happened through hidden dialogue and visual clues. And if you're hoping to get some sort of closure in the final act, bad news. They usually end on some vague cliffhanger as the main character floats through space and time. This is basically true all the way up to Half-Life 2 Episode 2, where instead of the typical David Lynch-esque ending, gamers were treated to the most brutal video game death to date. With tissues drying their eyes and their blood boiling for revenge, gamers were ready for Half-Life 2 Episode 3. And they waited, and waited, and waited, and then nothing. Not a trailer, not an image, not even a cheeky little winky face from Gabe. Total silence. Yet, in the absence of any official Valve announcement, hype grew. People discussed, people speculated, people made memes. No dormant franchise has had this much admiration. But it can't sustain itself off nothing. After nearly 20 years, it's time again to ask, where's Half-Life 3? Now, normally, I say creatives don't owe the public anything. If Billy Joel doesn't want to make Piano Man 2, he doesn't have to. But Half-Life is different. Half-Life 2 Episode 2 ended on a promise. It'd be like if George Lucas released Empire Strikes Back and then was all like, yeah, I'm good. And it's not the radio silence that hurts. It's the fact that Gabe set up to have a conclusion. If Episode 2 ended like all the other games, there wouldn't be a problem. But now I'm left screaming, what's the holdup? For creative endeavors, the answer is usually funding. But Steam practically prints money. Nothing is off the table for Valve. Equipment, talent, hell, just the allure of Half-Life 3 should attract geniuses from across the globe. Can you imagine that sort of cash flow? My big dream is making a movie. But emptying my bank account so 12 people on YouTube watch it isn't the smart play. You don't need a Scrooge McDuck pool full of gold coins to make something entertaining. Ghost of Tsushima reportedly cost $60 million to develop, and Gabe probably has $60 million stuck between his couch cushions. But money can't buy you everything. You can't just stick dough in an oven that's 800 degrees and instantly get cookies. What I like about Valve games is how distinct they are from one another, even if, on this surface, they seem like just another generic first-person shooter. Left 4 Dead and Portal are worlds apart from each other despite sharing a genre. You can't just pump Valve games out assembly line style the way other franchises do, because Valve games don't share the same building blocks. Take Bethesda Studios, which is known for releasing massive games reliably every 3 to 6 years. And while the games themselves are big, they seem similar to one another. It's like playing the same game just dressed up differently. Originally, Valve wanted to wait till Source 2 released, which, fair enough. But Source 2 released nearly a decade ago. Yes, good things do come to those who wait, but Larian Studios created Baldur's Gate 3 in 6 years. And Baldur's Gate may have had a greater seismic splash on the gaming world than Half-Life 2 did back in its heyday. And I know comparing the creative process is nearly impossible, especially when the goal is to create something utterly jaw-dropping. Every single Half-Life game has something that makes me go, wow. Probably my all-time favorite moment is that opening sequence in the first game. Everything from the start of the tram ride to the Renaissance Cascade. The atmosphere and quirkiness hooked me instantly. And that's the thing, Valve games aren't memorable because of the action, story, or music, but instead, how they weave everything together. Truly, Half-Life inspires a sense of awe. Aww. I said awe. A-W-E. that's better. And the only way to truly blow someone's mind is by showing them something new. But discovering those new things is getting harder and harder. Yeah, being a visionary's never been easy, but back in 1998, pepper in some seamless loading zones and boom, you just reinvented a genre. But in 2024, what's next? Obviously, I don't know, but that's not the point. The point is, only 13 short years separates 8-bit Super Mario Bros. From Half-Life. And then 6 years later, we get Half-Life 2. And even if the upgrades between 1 and 2 are mostly cosmetic, it was just so extreme. It was seriously like the gaming industrial revolution. To help illustrate this point, I've developed the Half-Life 2 improvement scale. Just look at games 20 years before and 20 years after Half-Life 2's release. The striking difference between the start and the finish takes my breath away. And while there are undeniable improvements between 2004 and 2024, the change is less stunning because it's less noticeable. 1998 to 2004 was an unrepeatable flashpoint. The shock and awe of comparing the next generation isn't there anymore. We passed that checkpoint and there is no going back. VR does have a chance to elevate the gaming experience, but I think we're still years away from any sort of seismic change in gaming. And this goes way beyond graphics or how you play the game, because in 2024, the average consumer is way more sophisticated. Whether it's video games or YouTube videos, it takes more than ever to grab people's attention. So coming from a small YouTuber, if you're still watching this video, I just want to say thank you. It really means a lot to me. Go back in time with a big lighter and they'll worship you like a god, but now you need a team of writers, a graphics department, experienced audio engineers if you even hope to grab people's attention. And Gabe knows that. The gaming landscape has changed drastically since Valve's glory days. I mean, younger gamers already label Half-Life and similar titles as boomer shooters. Young folks have always been the main gaming target. Does Gabe think he can conquer this new generation? That's to be decided. Past success doesn't guarantee future success. Recently, there have been a slew of established creatives that have failed to connect with younger audiences. Director Ridley Scott blamed millennials' cell phone use for declining box office numbers. I can see Gabe being afraid of the same fate. People at the top want to remain at the top. After all this time, Gabe can't afford to make something that's just okay. For him, anything less than the complete obliteration of the zeitgeist is an utter failure. So Half-Life 3 has the vague goal of creating a wonderful new experience with zero time constraints, an unlimited budget, and the expectation to be the second coming of Christ. No wonder it can't get done. Having no restraints became its restraint. Sometimes limitations are a good thing because it gives you parameters to build around. But total freedom is overwhelming. It's like you're free to do anything, so you freeze up and do nothing. It's the definition of an existential crisis. I can see it now after all these years. The entirety of Half-Life 3 development is just some whiteboard with some writing on it. Be fun, something with pipes, hats, question mark? Well, if Valve needs some motivation, then they should be aware of people's waning interest in Half-Life. Which sounds crazy, I know, but the hype won't last forever. Gamers that played the original Half-Life have reached middle age. This is a reminder for those people that the recommended colonoscopy screening age is 45. Don't put it off. Between losing interest in gaming, lack of time, or even death, the number of hardcore Half-Life fans is decreasing. There will come a time where people stop caring about a 20-year-old promise. As it stands, what's there to inspire the next generation of gamers? Who in good faith could introduce someone to this unfulfilled promise? That's just cruel. That's like recommending a Netflix series that got canceled after 2 seasons. One day I will get over Inside Job. A thriving community is full of people excited to talk about the game, learn intricate lore, and hype one another up. And Half-Life is running on empty. It's not dying tomorrow, but a bear can't hibernate forever. I don't think Gaben is withholding Half-Life 3 out of spite. I think he wants to give us a perfect game, which is a noble cause, yet incredibly naive, as perfection is just an unobtainable idea. Perfection's just the barrier to anything great. To me, Gaben is the James Cameron of gaming. But at least James frickin' Cameron was working on Avatar during that 13-year gap. There's always gonna be newer technology, sharper graphics, a better story, but once you start chasing the latest and greatest, you get distracted from all the opportunities around you. And Valve really needs to make Half-Life 3 because while Gordon Freeman may live forever, Gaben, I'm sad to say, will not. He may have discovered an infinite money glitch, but there are no one-ups here. And this isn't anything I like thinking about. Imagining a post-Gabe world gives me heart palpitations. But you can't ignore the inevitable. At 61, billionaire or not, anything can happen. So either Half-Life 3 gets made under Gabe's watch, or by some soulless corporation that bought the IP to milk. Although, I could see Gabe including in his will that Half-Life 3 never be made. I wouldn't put that past him. So even staring down the barrel of his own mortality, what's stopping Gaben? Fear. Fear of losing his image. He spent his entire life building himself up to become the God King Emperor of gaming, and he knows it could all come crashing down with a single bad release. Especially after all this time. He has a lot to lose with Half-Life 3, yet very little to gain. As it currently stands, Gabe's basically the head of a multi-generational cult. That's a heavy burden to bear, and if I've learned anything from Disney's Encanto, it's that the strongest carry the most pressure. And Gabe doesn't need to shoulder that alone. So just like Encanto, we, the humble villagers, need to show Gabe that we love him no matter what. That even if Half-Life 3 doesn't come close to living up to 2 decades worth of hype, everything's okay. Which is why I want you to tweet the hashtag #LoveGaben with kind words or memories from past Valve games. With hashtag #LoveGaben, we can reassure him that his throne is guaranteed thanks to a life of service to the industry. I mean, the man delivered upon us the Steam Deck. If that doesn't make you a patron saint of gaming, I don't know what does. But despite the hashtag #LoveGaben, I understand his concerns. Gabe has had an intimate relationship with gamers for the past 25 years and knows how volatile they can be. He's seen countless episodes of outrage, both justified and unjustified. Gamers' passion is truly a double-edged sword. When they love you, but scorn them once and you'll feel the wrath of 1,000 angry sons. Or at least 1,000 angry keystrokes. Just recently, Helldivers went from being the most beloved game to surviving on life support. Now this isn't about whether Helldivers overreacted or not, it's just one example of many of gamers loudly protesting. And the scary thing is, you don't know what'll trigger gamers. For every justifiable tantrum, there's one that's absolutely stupid. Leaving Gabe to play Russian roulette with his reputation. I don't know why video games invoke such strong emotions, but I swear there'd be some sort of terrorist bombing if they turned Gordon Freeman black. But crazies are gonna crazy. Stay sane with hashtag #LoveGaben. The impossible challenge for Half-Life is that the third game will never meet expectations. Because it doesn't exist, you can let your imagination run wild. Maybe it'll feature some super crazy advanced AI that truly creates a unique experience each time. Or maybe Valve's secretly working on some sensory chamber that ushers in the next era of gaming. Whatever you think, it can be. It's like Schrodinger's game. Right now, Half-Life 3 is just some mystic legend foretold by the millennials of old. And while having that kind of mystery is alluring, 20 years of silence is just cruel. I get it, Gabe's scared, but it's not his fear that makes him a coward. Fear's a natural response to the stress of creating a revolutionary game or the thought of losing status. It's his utter silence on the matter that's cowardly. He made a promise to the world on October 10th, 2007. A promise to bring this chapter to a close. And he needs to keep that promise. Yes, Gabe, we still love you, but we won't be here forever. Like a person whose lover is acting cold and distant, we can only take so much before leaving. While Gabe's actions on Half-Life 3 have been cowardly, I am not yet ready to call him a coward. But if there's still zero word on Half-Life 3, and it could be anything, even just a picture of a thumbs up with a hidden 3 somewhere, by October 10th, 2027, 20 years after Half-Life 2 Episode 2's release, then he is a coward. We fans deserve something after all this time. The clock is ticking. Don't disappoint us.